what do you see 5 years out for your enterprise here that might be different than it is, be different than it is today?
Not unlike a lot of government-supported cultural institutions, right. We are being looked at right now and scrutinized in a way that I think is healthy, but we won't go into that. But I think with any luck, people will recognize the value that they have built over 60 years in this institution and not dismantle it in a way which I think would be just a crying shame. It's hard for me to believe that the $17 that shows up on your tax bill if you have a $150,000 house versus having the institutions that we have built as York County's family of museums would be any great debate. But there are those people that want to make, as you know, all these kinds of institutions subject to a great debate. And that's going on full blast in South Carolina right now and the rest of the country. However, getting beyond that, and assuming that our economy recovers, which I think we may be in the year that it will finally recover, I think that York County has actually started to understand that the kind of institution that we are, as well as some other ideas that have been floated around, are actually compromise what I would call, in shorthand, your quality of life infrastructure. And I'm not talking about the contributions we make to the big scheme of history and art history and natural history and all those, because those are the kind of things that unfortunately, there are a relatively few number of people who really appreciate that really appreciate the research that Michael Scoggins does. But what ends up happening is that they do appreciate ultimately the front end of that research, which is some sort of program that they can engage with. So that's the point, is that I think that now people are starting to realize that investment in these in organizations like ours eventually gets back to where they can have a substantive, meaningful experience with their family. It could be education, it could be enjoyment, it could be entertainment, but it's there, and we provide that day in and day out. York County now, I think, is starting to recognize that there's more potential for that in York County, not just its family of museums. But York County has been a leader in the development of a regional effort to create what's called the Carolina Thread Trail, which is envisioned to be a 500-mile network of trails throughout the whole 14-county region. The region that we're in, Bob, by the way, here in upstate South Carolina, the counties of Lancaster, Chester, and York County are part of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg region, which is, of course, crosses the state line. But that region is the size of Connecticut and has the population of Nevada, and it's smack dab in the middle of the heart of the Carolinas. So it's not a bad place for us to be, because another one of the things we try to do is drive economic development. Yes, and so, for example, 52% of our audience for this place comes from Charlotte. 20% of our audience for our new little children's museum, which is a small but mighty place, comes from Charlotte, or comes from let's put it this way, comes from outside York County. And so we do that economic development piece too. And if, in fact, when we drive people from McConnell's over here in the western part of the county to the new Children's Museum, undoubtedly they're probably going to eat lunch along the way or buy some gas or whatever. So we're actually creating that cross-county tourism, which feeds into hospitality taxes. So between accommodations tax and hospitality tax and sales tax, we're making a contribution in terms of economic development, which is an important plank of who we are. When we created the ordinance in 1997, I helped write that ordinance, and I insisted that that be in there so that we could say to everybody, look, we're mandating ourselves to not just do this and this and this, but we want to add value. So why not economic development? I mean, why shouldn't we be attracting people from outside of York County? I think the museum system will continue to grow and be nourished by the community. I believe that it will be a constant challenge to educate everybody why we exist, why it's worth that investment. I believe that the organization will constantly rearrange itself to the conditions of the current situation, and that's been our hallmark all along. And what I mean by that is that the needs that we had for the next 5 years may be very different from the needs that we had for the last 5 years. We aren't afraid to change those things, but unfortunately that can cause its own set of circumstances. Like when we started to align ourselves and restructure in the mid-2000 and 2005, it caused a lot of problems. But at the end of the day, if you don't constantly adapt to your environment, it's just like biological adaptation. move, change, or die.
That's right.
And so, we're kind of, we like the change thing because we don't want to move and we don't want to die. And so we have to do that. So we're always going to be looking at those issues. And I think, quite frankly, that is a hallmark of every sector of our society right now. That's no different from every other institution or every other sector of our society. You have to adapt. It's a different world. It's changing instantly. We all know this. Change is the only thing that doesn't change. We know that. So that's going to be part of who we are. I believe that we will probably in the next 5 years have developed part of, if not all of, our new Museum on the River, which is a different kind of facility and program center.
Museum on the River.
It's designed, that's a long-range plan that we have to have this new museum on the Catawba River. And the idea there is to create a museum that does focus on that intersection between culture and nature, people and place, the great crossroads that Catawba River represents in that area, the Nation Ford, the current I-77 crossing, the river itself, the power transmission lines. All these are sort of crossroads themes for us, and themes that sort of bind together culture and nature, the past, present, and future, and what have you. So we're real excited about that. We have finished the interpretive plan for that. It will take political support to make that happen. The county will have to recognize that they need to make a bricks and mortar investment, and then we can go out and raise money for exhibits and programs and make those things happen. Owen will tell you, or Michael, that we're about ready to enter into a new phase in terms of our management of our collections and archives resources. We believe that we're on the cusp of creating a new collections and archives center at the McKelvey Center, which will be state-of-the-art storage for our collections and our material culture and our archives. And we expect that the process of retooling ourselves to be able to enter that center and take things out of where they are now and put them in that center will no doubt uncover tremendous new program opportunities, resources, what have you, because when you have to dive that deep into understanding exactly where everything is, and you're not just looking at it from a card catalog point of view, but you're actually dealing with it physically, undoubtedly new things are going to pop up there. Plus, the facility itself will lend itself, I think, to some new types of programs. And it also will free up the main McKelvey building to think creatively, okay, now that we have this 1922 building, what can be done there with these things sort of moving out? So that's a part of our future that's coming up on the horizon. I suspect we will be part of the folks that implement the Carolina Thread Trail, since it's designed to basically attach to all of our properties in one way or another. I believe that York County will start to lift up the conversation about what does it want to have in the way of quality of life resources in the future. What is the museum's role in that? What's going to happen with some other ideas that are out there floating around, and how can we all work together to make these things happen? So I see a lot of fun stuff ahead, challenging but good.
Is there any other county in South Carolina that has a similar program? There are 45 others, aren't there? 45 other counties.
I don't think so.
I haven't come across it.
I don't think so.
Well, it's remarkable. Well, thank you very much for your contribution today.
Bob, it's been a real pleasure, and I apologize for just going on, but it's just one thing about me that you probably have figured out is that I'm very passionate and I care deeply about the work that I do.
It comes through. Thanks again.
You're welcome.